This is why you should stop looking for morels. You know, finding these things is one of the most exciting things to any forager or mushroom hunter, and for the same reason, not finding them is one of the most frustrating. So I'm going to show you several amazing plant species to forage for instead of morels in order to find more morels. Let me explain. If you ask me, I would say that morels are far more varied in their preferences than people often let on to. Let's think about some of the classic morel trees like slippery elm or tulip poplar. I have definitely found morels in areas with a lot of those trees, but I've also not found morels in areas with a lot of those trees. In addition, I found morels in areas that don't have any of the classically mentioned trees at all. So for you, one of the biggest components to finding more morels this season is literally just getting out there and exploring more areas as much as you can. And here is a common progression for people at the beginning of morel season. They start off and they are excited and motivated, so they'll go out there and look and they won't find any. And that's okay, they'll be a little bit frustrated. They'll go out again, they'll look for more, they don't find any, a little bit more frustrated, and this continues on. And they start to search harder and harder while getting more and more discouraged, and it ultimately ends up with them just stop looking entirely. I can personally attest to this. This has happened to me during many seasons. What if instead we flipped the script and we looked for some plant species that are a bit easier and more consistent to find, but still very delicious and treasured? Maybe you'd be more excited about each of your foraging expeditions. Maybe you'd be taxing your eyes a little bit less. Maybe you would go out looking even more, and maybe this season it would lead you to finding morels. Have I convinced you yet? I really think you're going to love foraging for these species. I'm going to go through them in order of the ones that I kind of like to the ones that I really like. The first one is a common yard plant that can also be found in more wooded areas. It's called purple dead nettle. Now, people do talk about eating this plant. I personally don't like it that way. Instead, what I do is I'll gather the aerial parts of the plant and then I'll dehydrate them and just run them through my hands to crush them and then use them to make a tea. All you have to do is add in boiling or hot water, let it steep, strain it out. There you go. You have a delicious wild tea to go with your morels. This next one you can actually include with the morels when you're cooking it. It's called American wild onion, Allium canadense. Not to be confused with field garlic, Allium vignale. That's the one that commonly grows in your yard. American wild onion usually occurs in more wooded areas. The two are very easy to tell apart. Field garlic has hollow leaves. American wild onion has solid leaves that are curved. And if you ask me, the texture and flavor of American wild onion is far superior to the invasive field garlic. You can chop them up and put them directly into the pan when you're cooking morels, or you can just use them like chives and put them on top raw. I like them either way. A little bit after morel season, they'll also be flowering. They have beautiful 6-petaled flowers. It's a really great time to find them because they'll also be at the bulbil stage when you can propagate them. And that's great because this native plant could really use your help because it's being outcompeted by its invasive cousin. With the next one, you're getting 2 for 1. Stinging and wood nettle. Now, a lot of people know about stinging nettle. It's become a very popular foraged plant, but not as many people know about its cousin, wood nettle. Stinging nettle, most of the time, is actually from Europe, so you can gather as much of it as you want, and wood nettle is actually a native plant to eastern North America. So with this one and others in this video, you should try to harvest it with some care. The two are very easy to tell apart. Stinging nettle has an opposite arrangement. The leaves come off at the same point along the stem. Wood nettle has an alternating arrangement. They come off at different points along the stem. In terms of cooking, they're both very delicious when you gather them. When they're young, I have a little bit of a preference towards wood nettle, and what I normally do is I'll steam them, as is recommended in Forager Chef's article on these plants. They're very delicious and will make a wonderful side for your morels. This next one is of huge interest to all of us morel hunters. It's slippery elm. I know that you've heard of this one, but maybe you haven't heard of some of the things that you can do with it. In the wintertime, I love gathering the branchlets to get the inner bark that I make tea with. It's one of my favorites. But also, around morel season, elms often have their samaras out. They are lime green and come in these clusters high up in the tree. often use my binoculars to spot them. These samaras, when they're green, are the infertile seeds of cyprium, and you can eat them. They taste incredible. It's kind of like a combination between green beans and okra, some of that mucilaginous texture for which cyprium gets its name. So there are many reasons beyond just the morel association to be looking for cyprium. When you spot them, you can also go back and wait for those samaras to fall off when they're brown, and you can use that to propagate your own cyprium. I see a lot of people commonly stating that cyprium is endangered, and it is important to state that that is not true. Cyprium is not endangered. Next we have sochan, Rudbeckia laciniata, also called cutleaf coneflower. This one is one of my all-time favorite wild greens. It's delicious, it's amazing, not a lot of people know about it, and I love it. One of my favorite things to do with them is to just blanch them for 30 to 45 seconds in salted water. I take them out, and that is it. They are ready to enjoy. The flavor and texture of these greens are incredible, and you can freeze them to use them throughout the year. There is a lookalike to sochan that's called hispid buttercup. During morel season, hispid buttercup will actually be flowering, and sochan doesn't flower until far later on in the year. If you aren't sure about these two, I would encourage you to observe them throughout the year, as the flowers of sochan are very, very different from the flowers of hispid buttercup. The next one is a little bit different from all the rest of them. So far, we've just been talking about directly gathering the plants for consuming them. With this one, we're going to be scouting for something that is going to lead us to fruit later on in the season. It's the flowers of pawpaw, which often come up at the time of the morel season. This is all shown in my interactive foraging calendar. In my opinion, pawpaw trees are one, much easier to find when they're flowering, but two, there's a trick that you can do at the flowering stage that will drastically increase the amount of fruits that you can get later on in the season. It's a really important topic, and I have a whole video dedicated to discussing all of it. So I hope to see you there. I really think you're going to like this one.